Welcome to April's edition of our HR Heroes Roundtable. For those of you who are perhaps new joining us, this is an opportunity for us to gather, learn, and ask questions. This is not just to watch and listen, this is to participate actively. So we encourage you when that time comes to do so. And thank you for being here. Thank you, Erika, so much for joining us. The time is yours.
Okay, wonderful. I am very excited to be talking about a topic that is very, very near and dear to my heart, which is HR transformation. And to be clear, when I talk about HR transformation, I'm not talking about transforming HR systems or processes. It's really about transforming the reputation that we have as an HR function and earning finally that seat at the table that I know that we are always chasing. A lot of what has inspired what I'm going to talk about today is actually a journey that I took as part of a Fortune 50 company a few years back that I've had the pleasure of taking to some other companies since then. And all of this is based on a book called Uncommon Service, written by Frei of Harvard Business School. And that is not a book that has anything to do with HR, by the way. It is a book about designing business models to compete. But we took the concepts of her book and applied them to an HR function to really provide an uncommon level of HR service and to transform the way our internal customers thought about our function. And so, as Peter said, thank you, Peter. My name is Erika Migliaccio. I run a company called Upstream HR Strategies. We are a small boutique HR consulting firm that's focused mainly on executive coaching, leadership development, career path development, and HR transformation. And like I said before, this is really something that's near and dear to my heart. As you can see, the mission of this company is to delight our customers, of course, but to do that by delivering uncommon HR service that expands the bounds of traditional HR and forever changes the way others think about our profession. I remember being early on in my HR career and taking a job where I had backfilled someone. And it was about 3 months into the job. So the person who had been there before me had not been gone very long. And I remember speaking to one of the leaders, and he was referencing this other woman. And he said to me, who was that HR lady? When she was here, she said something about this. And I remember thinking to myself, I never want to be just another HR lady that passes through an organization. I want to be someone who leaves a fingerprint on the organization and someone who changes the way the people think about our HR function. And that has been a mission of mine for a while. This is just a quick peek at some of the customers that we work with. And I will tell you, I've worked with a number of these customers on HR transformation. And it does not matter which company I go to, which industry it's in, how big the company is. When I go and speak to an HR team for the first time, I usually see the same exact thing. This is what I see. I see HR teams that most part have very, very strong employee relations expertise. They're great at handling performance issues. They're great at hiring. They're great at doing exits. They've really got strong relationships with the managers that they support. Most of them have very, very large client groups, hundreds of people that they're supporting. Most of them tell me, Erika, I am so stuck in doing all of the day-to-day work that I can never get to the strategic work that the leaders are asking me to do. And by the way, that's the work I really want to do. They don't have time to coach their leaders. And what I find is that they tell me they are exhausted. And in most cases, I see an organization chart that looks like this also. You've got HR managers who are responsible for different parts of an organization, and they're responsible for all of the HR work that happens in that organization. Everything from the administrative work to the employee-facing work to the work that has more to do with the collective group, like culture, like succession planning and pipeline planning. And so they're offering all of the HR services to a specific client group. And what they tell me is that they feel like they're not doing a great job at any of those things, and they feel exhausted. So I don't know if that rings true with anybody. There's a lot of companies right now too that are also coming to me saying, hey, Erika, we have to do an HR transformation. We know we have to do things differently. And, I ask them, what do you think is driving this? And here's a variety of responses that they'll tell me. They'll say, the leaders are telling us that we're not giving them enough strategic support. The employees are telling us that we're not giving them enough personal support. We're not helping them with their development. From a business perspective, the business is looking for reduced cost and more efficiency. And the HR team, apart from being exhausted, is telling us that they want clearer roles and they want a clear career path. And so what I find most of the time is that they're saying, we know we need to reduce the low value add activities that we're doing to make room for the high value add stuff. And I love that narrative. That's what we should be thinking about. But I have a problem with this, and here's why. When I was in college many, many moons ago, some of these books by Dave Ulrich were being introduced. 1997, we're talking about tomorrow's HR management. It's one of the things that got me excited to join the HR function. 2005, 2009. I don't know if you guys saw, there was an email that Ulrich sent out yesterday with the new HR competency model. But here's what kind of gets me about this. We've been talking about the same thing. That's my first badge, by the way, of working at GE in 1999 when I joined. We've been talking about HR transformation since I began my career. We've been talking about this seat at the table. We've been talking about creating an HR function that's more strategic, that's really focused on the needs of our customers. Why aren't we there yet? Why are we still talking about the same things? Why are we still reading the same Dave Ulrich books? And as I dig into this, here's what I've noticed. I've done a lot of research on transformations and what makes a successful transformation, why transformations fail sometimes. And a lot of the literature will tell you this, that in order to have a successful transformation, you need a clear vision. You need to upgrade talent. You need to move fast. And I don't necessarily think those things are wrong, but I think that there's two things that we've done as an HR function that have prevented us from achieving success. The reasons that all these years later, we're still trying to do the same thing. And I think it's because we've never taken a customer service focused approach. When we transform HR, we tend to transform HR to drive efficiency, to improve systems, to make things better for the HR team. But do we go find out who our customers are and ask them what they want? I've found that in most cases, the answer is no. I also think that a major failure mode for us is that we view transformation as having a start point and an end point. And I believe that transformation never ends. It is an ongoing process. It's not a project. The businesses that we support are constantly transforming. There's always new markets, new products, new strategies. If the business is constantly transforming, That means that we have to constantly transform if we're going to continue to add value. And I think that what happens is we run a transformation project, we call it done, and then we stop looking at it. Meanwhile, the business continues to change. And then in another 5 years, we go, oh my God, we're really behind. We have to transform again. Versus having a viewpoint of constantly transforming along the way. And I think that this missing link is very beautifully addressed by this book, Uncommon Service, that I mentioned before. And there's a few key points in this book, and they're here on the screen. What Francis Frei says is that you can't be good at everything. Whether you're talking about an entire business or just one function or even just one human being, you can't be good at everything. And if you try to be great at too many things, you will end up being mediocre and exhausted. At the same time, there's always limited resources. Again, if you're a business, you have limited funding, you have limited numbers of people. If you try to be great at everything, you'll be mediocre and exhausted. And so you have to figure out where are the areas you're going to invest so that you can be great at a few things. And here's the tough part. You have to allow yourself to be bad at some things too. And it's really this concept that drove the HR transformation process that I use today. And Frances outlines a process here. She says, when you're trying to figure out your strategy, the first thing you have to do is understand who your customers are. Who are your customers? Then you have to segment your customers, and you have to understand how different customer segments have different needs. Then you have to go and ask those customers, if you're making a decision to purchase, if you're making any type of consumer decision, what are the top 3 or 4 factors that influence your decision? And what are the things that don't matter to you as much? And so she has this process where, you ask your customers, here's all of the services that we provide, go put them in order of most important all the way down to least important. Then tell us how we're performing in each of those services today. And the result is a chart that looks like this on the screen. So what you've got down here on the left side is the order of the services, what's most important to you, what's least important to you. And then you've got what is our relative performance, how do we perform in those services? And what Frances says is that in a perfect world, the dots will line up like this line. In a perfect world, you are performing well, you're scoring 4s and 5s on the services that are most important to your customers, and you're scoring low 1, 2s, and 3s on the services that are least important to your customers. She says, once you understand that, now you can make the decision of where to invest your resources to become great at those top 3 or 4 things and allow yourself to be bad at all the rest. We run this exercise with HR teams, and I'll show it to you. And I'll tell you, this middle chart is usually what the feedback ends up looking like. We've got this line that kind of runs down the middle. And what it shows is that you're underperforming in the areas that are important to your customers. And in a lot of cases, we're overperforming on things that our customers don't really care about. Some cases, it's even more severe than that, where we've got, in one case, services that have almost an inverse relationship to this perfect service model. All right. And it's really this that can inspire us to look at ourselves differently and to utilize our customer feedback. And when I say customers, I'll explain a little bit more. I'm talking about the leaders, the managers, the individual contributor employees in your business. We have to use their feedback to inspire us to reshape the way that we do work. And before I move on, I just want to pause to see if there's any questions or reactions on this concept of uncommon service. Okay. Please do. Oh, thanks for the thumbs up, Sherry. I appreciate it. Please interrupt you. By the way, I can't see the chat when I'm sharing my screen. So Peter, if there's anything going on in the chat, I'd love to hear it too.
For sure, for sure.
All right, so I want to walk you through the process. If you say to yourself, this is something really interesting, how do I do this? Step one is to define your stakeholders or your customers. And I think if you ask the employees in your business, the answer to them is very, very clear. You know, their customers are the external customers. It's easy for them to see that. On the other hand, if you ask your HR team who are your customers, sometimes they'll also say it's the external customers, but I don't necessarily agree. For your HR team, your customers are all of the employees in your business, as well as your external customers. And so step one is for HR teams to take a step back and say, the people in our company, those are our main customers. We are here to serve them. We are here to make them better. Our job is to deliver such high quality HR service that if they had a chance to not use us, if they had an option, they would pick us over any other HR team that they could get. And that's a little bit of a different mindset shift. I know there's a lot of HR teams out there that say, they're not our customers, you know, we're partners. But at the end of the day, as an enabling function, we have to bring value. They are our customers. Once you can get your head wrapped around that, then you start to segment the customers. So there's all different types of employees within your business. So you have different types of customer groups. You have your executive leaders, those who are thinking more strategically and more broad about the organization as a collective. You've got your managers who are leading their individual teams and who are dealing more with individual employee-based issues. And then you've got your individual contributors who are dealing with themselves most of the time and worried about their success, worried about their career path. So after you segment your customers, the next step is to ask them to evaluate you as an HR team. And I've done this many different ways. Sometimes we use surveys, sometimes we use focus groups, we do one-on-one conversations, but we hand them a list of HR services. Here are all the services that our HR team provides. Step one, customer groups. And by the way, when we do this, we do the process separately for each customer group so we can compare the data. So each customer group, take those HR services and put them in order. What's most important to you? What's least important to you? Once you've done that, now we ask the customers to rate us and tell us how well we as an HR team are delivering those services. And so you end up with a chart that looks like the charts in the Francis Frei graphs. Okay. Once you have the data, you can evaluate where you're overperforming and where you're underperforming. So comparing your actual results to this line that represents the perfect service model, and ask yourself, is there a way that we can redesign our service model to provide service that caters to the different needs of each customer group and gives them the things that they are most concerned about that? And I will tell you, if you go out there with a very open and vulnerable approach, they will tell you the truth. And I would like to show you some charts that's real data from a real company and how this actually turned out. So this was for one company, their employee data. So you can see the phenomenon that's going on here. You can see this mediocre and exhausted happening. They basically rated our quality of services about the same across the board. But you can see here, we're underperforming in the services that are important to them. We're overperforming in the services that are least important to them. And here's some of the things they said. I don't know who my HR manager is. Oh my gosh, I hate to hear that. I don't trust HR. I don't know what HR does. HR never spends time with me as an individual. They're always in the office with my manager, or they're always in the office with the leader. I don't get enough coaching. I, as an individual contributor, need more love. And in this particular case, their average score was a 2.4 out of 5. The orange dots here show that actually, some of the lowest scores came in some of the items that were really most important to them. We asked managers the same thing, and you can see this graph doesn't look all that different. The average score is a little bit higher, but still underperforming in the services that are most important to them, overperforming in the services they don't care about. And listen, they're saying the same thing. They're saying, I don't know who my HRM is. I don't get enough support. I don't get enough coaching as a leader. I don't really get a lot of guidance on HR processes. They're kind of pushing everything back on me. I'm trying to run a business. I can't be an expert in HR too. I need more support. And the funny thing is, the managers said the same thing as the individual contributors. They said, you guys are so busy with employees that you don't spend enough time with us. And then there were the leaders. And I remember doing this process, we thought the leaders were going to rate us really, really high because we were so strategic and we spent so much time with them. They said the same exact thing. Underperforming in the services that are important to them, way overperforming, they said, in the services that they don't care about. And here's what they said. First of all, they said the same thing. You guys are so busy with the managers and the individual contributors, you don't have enough time for us. They said that we were not well read, meaning we weren't spending enough time doing research and staying up to date with what was going on in the HR function in the industry, that we were too transactional, that we were good people, smart people, but we were focused on the wrong things. And for them, they said that they wanted more strategic partnership from their HR team. And if you look at all of this, there's a couple of themes here. Number one, very clear that our actual scores were exactly opposite of what a perfect service model should be. Our lowest scores were often in the top 5 important services to our customers. Really, really importantly, each customer group had a totally different set of important services. When we looked at the top 5 services for all 3 groups, they were totally different. The only thing, that's the blue dot, the only thing that each customer group had consistently was that they wanted more coaching from HR. All of them wanted more time with the HR team. And so what we found is that not a single customer group was delighted with us, and they viewed our performance as average at best. Ouch, it hurt. We also asked the HR team some questions, and here's what they told us. So we asked both HR generalists, we asked HR specialists, we asked them in a variety of different ways, and they told us that our tools and processes were burdensome, that they were so overloaded with transactional work that they had 0 time to connect with their customers, 0 time for strategic thinking or innovation or paying attention to anything that was going on outside of the business. They said they didn't feel customer focused, and they felt badly because it always took them too long to deliver things that they thought they should be able to do better or faster. They said they also felt that there wasn't a lot of career path opportunities, that all the jobs look the same. If you're an HR manager, you're an HR manager. The only thing that changes is the group that you're supporting. And just like Francis Frei said, they literally told us that they were exhausted and feeling mediocre. And as part of an HR leadership team that went through this process, I have to tell you, this feedback hurt. We did not view ourselves in this way. We thought the feedback would be much more positive. And it took us a while to get our heads wrapped around it until we realized that what we could do and what we should do was to use this constructive feedback as inspiration to improve and as inspiration to create an HR service model that could delight our customers. I'm going to pause again and just to see if there's any questions before we moved into the next section.
So far, nothing in the chat.
Okay. You know, no one ever wants to be the first one to jump in, so I'll just leave a little bit more room here.
Pretty much. Okay, we have one.
Yeah.
The question is how to engage managers to involve HR.
I think, you know, and we'll talk about this going through it because I'll show you the feedback from managers after we went through this process. I think the way to be invited is to add value proactively and bring managers problems with solutions that they didn't even know they had. Proactively seek to understand their business and bring them ideas on what you can do from an HR standpoint to help them reach their business goals, and to develop a trusting personal relationship so that you can become a coach for them individually as well. And I believe that the more you bring proactive thought leadership, the more likely they are to invite you in without you having to ask. And I'll show you how to help that at least. All right, Peter, I'm going to keep going for now, but let me know if there's anything else. So I want to show you what we did after we got the feedback. You know, we looked at, here's all the feedback we got. We got it from our 3 customer groups. We got it from the HR team. We had pressure from the business. And we looked at, you know, what does each group say they wanted from us? And again, there's all these different things. And it was a very complex formula to solve for, by the way. And we said, you know, is there a way that we can design a model that's going to address feedback from all of the stakeholders? It's going to create a better life for the HR team. It's going to decrease cost, and it's going to give better service to our customers. And I think at the beginning, we said to ourselves, this seems like an impossible task, right? It seems like these are trade-offs that just won't fit together, but we ended up doing it. And here's how, because when we really looked at the way that we were delivering our services, we had our 3 customer segments, our executives, our managers, our individual employees, and we basically had one service offering called an HR manager or an HR generalist. Those HR managers and HR generalists were providing the organizational support, the employee support, the transactional support, the specialty support. They were providing all services to all customers. You know, if you think about any store that you've ever shopped in or any other business, they would never do that. It's like going to the Toyota dealership and them having one car and trying to sell that car to a single person who has no kids and wants a sports car, and the family that has 3 kids that needs room for everyone and all their sports gear. You can't sell one product to all your different customer segments. It's just not going to work. But it's exactly what we were trying to do as an HR team. And so we were breaking some of these cardinal rules of Francis Frei's uncommon service. What we did is we redesigned the HR team. And we said, instead of having one HR job that provides all services to all customers, we're going to create specific roles that focus on delivering services that are unique to the needs of each customer group. So we created a role called HR business partner. Their focus was all things organizational. So they didn't think about employees as individuals. They were thinking about employees as a collective. Culture, pipeline strategy, succession planning, working with the communications team, right? All things that had to do with the employees as a whole. They were assigned to serve the executive leaders, and they had not necessarily single points of contact, but each executive leader knew who their business partner was. Then we created roles called employee partners, and their focus was all on individual employee support, both for the managers and the individual employees, because the managers and individual contributors, their needs had to do with individual employee issues. From a manager standpoint, it was, help me find the right person to fill this job. Help me manage this performance issue. Help me give this person a raise. The managers are always very focused many times on individual employee things. And the same thing for your individual contributors. Help me prepare for an interview. Help me understand my career options. Help me figure out what I need to do next, or where I need to develop, and what feedback do I need to grow. And so those employee partners focus on all of the individual employee items. We also created an employee operations team, and what they did was they took all of the administrative, transactional, repeatable processes from the business partners and the employee partners and did all of that for them. They supported those two roles so that the business partners and employee partners can spend less time behind their desks and more time out there with their customers. And of course, we created a COE structure that housed all of the specialties so that we had people who were focused on recruiting, people who were focused on pay and benefits and those types of things that an employee partner or a business partner might not do all of the time. And when you run into it, you have to reteach yourself every single time you do it. And so we created this new structure that really helped us provide focus. And so when you look at before and after, in the previous structure, it was really difficult for those HR managers to flex their skill sets during the day. If you think about it, you're doing an org design in 1 minute, the next minute you have an employee in your office who has a benefits question. It's really hard to be productive when you are shifting your skill set and shifting your mindset so drastically throughout the day. It was really difficult for them to prioritize their customers. In addition to that, because they had to be able to provide services to the executive leaders as well as the individual employees, we had to hire someone who had the highest skill set possible. But when you think about the fact that a vast majority of their work, 75%, did not require that strategic skill set, we were overpaying for a lot of our talent in a lot of different places. And even though we were doing that, our customers still weren't happy. Afterward, with this new structure, we had HR roles that were segmented. Each segment had more accessible and focused HR support. They had people who knew how to deliver their needs and did it day in and day out. Each group could worry about being great at a fewer number of items. And when you could say to me, how could we be bad at something as an HR team? We have to be good at everything. And I agree. But what this model does is it helps you become great at a smaller number of services within each group. So business partners are great at 3 or 4 things. Employee partners are great at 3 or 4 things. Employee operations is great at 3 or 4 things. Everything else you can be bad at because someone else on the team is great at it. And so it was a much more focused, much more expert type of support. It also reduced our cost because the people in the employee partner roles and the operations roles, we could now go and hire people who had the right skill sets for those roles. And we no longer had to overhire because everyone was also supporting executive leaders at the same time. What the HR team loved about this, by the way, is that it created a career path for them. We had a lot of people start in a COE, move into an employee operations role, and then into an employee partner role, and then into a business partner role. And so there was a very clear path of development, which they loved as well. And so while we thought the challenge was impossible, we were actually able to address the feedback from each and every one of the stakeholder groups. I'm going to pause there just to see if there's questions.
There was a thank you in response to the last question, but no further questions as yet.
Okay, anybody want to unmute and jump in?
Several positive reactions.
Oh, I know, when I speak about this topic, I usually get that from the team is, oh my God, thank you for saying that out loud, because we are exhausted and we do feel mediocre. We always feel like we're not fast enough, we're not strategic enough, we're not doing this and that, but we want to. And it's not a great feeling, to show up at work every day and always feel like you're behind or that you're disappointing people. And I want people to know, if you feel like that, it is probably not your fault. It is probably more a result of the way that your organization is structured, and that your job is structured in a way that it's expecting you to be a unicorn who can deliver all services to all customers. And especially having gone through this process now multiple times, I believe with all of my heart that it's impossible. There are very few unicorns out there, and creating a structure like this that has much more specific roles is going to feel way more fulfilling, and it's going to create, it makes it easier to find talent that can excel in each of these individual jobs. So if you are feeling like this, do not feel bad. Most likely it's a result of the structure of your job and not your capability.
Great. There's someone says it's all clear so far, and that someone else loves the new model. And I personally am, now this makes a whole lot more sense when you start seeing these different titles and you're like, what is it? Now I get it a little bit better.
Yeah. So I'll share with you a little bit of feedback that we got from people not too long after we introduced this new model. So we went and we resurveyed the executive leaders, the managers, and the individual contributors. And you can see, here's all the different categories of questions that we asked them. The light colored bars were the before scores. The dark colored bars were the after scores. And as a reminder, this was only 6 months after implementation. So you can see that every single group had a significant increase in their response to the HR team. What we also found, this chart here is comparing those who said they understood the changes to this new HR model versus those that said it's better, it's worse, or it's about the same. And so we found literally a 100% not inverse, but direct relationship between those who said they understood the model and those who said it created better support. So if they understood it, they said, wow, this is 10 times better than it was before. If they didn't understand it, they were less likely to say it was better, and their scores didn't really change, which really speaks to the importance of open, honest, ongoing communication in a change initiative. You have to, one of the other Francis Frei, things here is that you have to manage your customers, which means you have to teach them. If you're going to change your model, you have to really teach them how the expectations are changing, how they need to interact differently with the HR team, who they should be going to for what. And if you do that clearly, you can see what they said here is, wow, this is a lot better than what it used to be. Some feedback also from the HR team here. You can see comments from the HR team. I'm free of the heavy administrative work. I have more time to focus on employees. I'm thinking strategically. I'm spending more time sharing best practices now across my network. It's great to have the roles and responsibilities clear so the customers can get more time. It cleared up confusion among the HR team. And so not just the customers were happy, but the HR team embraced this as well. And the business, our last stakeholder group, was also quite excited because we were able to increase our ratio and generate almost $3 million in annualized cost savings just in the first year. And that came from that concept of overfilling certain jobs in the past versus now hiring the right profile of person for the right job. And so this particular team had a structure that looked like an inverted triangle. The HR team had a lot of really senior people and had very few entry-level people. By the time we were done, the triangle turned upside down, where there were less senior people, more mid-career people, and more entry-level people, which really allowed us to keep our head count about the same while reducing cost. And we did it in a very simple way. We didn't necessarily lay people off and replace them. We waited for people to leave. And when they left, we replaced them with someone who was more appropriate for the job that they were doing. And so it really impacted not only the customers and the HR team, but also the business impact and the financials. Okay, there's a whole process around this. I could talk about it for hours, but I do have some words of advice here. If you're going to do something like this, having strong HR leadership support, CEO support, senior leadership team, it's incredibly, incredibly important for you to explain why you're doing this, get them on board, and have them speak on your behalf. You must have a strong leader who's going to own this change, own the process, own the project, and own it in an ongoing way. This does not end. Once you make a change like this, you have to constantly gather feedback, ask people how we're doing, look at what's changing, make continuous adjustments to make sure that you never find yourself again in the place where the business has outpaced you and you have to play catch up. You must have very, very clear guiding principles with an understanding of why are we doing this. Again, it's not about making life simpler for the HR team, although that could be a byproduct. This is about generating and offering higher quality service to your customers. And every decision you make must be aligned with that higher level goal. Change management is incredibly important. We gained a lot of credibility through this process by being very, very vulnerable, by asking people for help, by sharing our data freely, by telling them, we're so sorry, this is where we are, but we pledge to make things better, and we need your help to get there. Every single one of our communications reminded people, this is what you told us, and we're changing, this is what we're changing, and we're doing it to address your feedback. We always brought it back to, this is designed to provide better service for you. Okay. There's a lot of other words of advice here. You can read through them, but I think one of the things that's really most important to me is that when you go through a process like this, it cannot be criticism of the past. It has to be evolving for the future. You cannot look at people and say, I can't believe you let this happen. Again, it's not the individual's fault. It's the structure that's the problem. And so you have to go at this with a very positive, forward-looking view. That's not about criticizing anyone. It's about providing better service in the future. Okay. I wanted to leave some time here for Q&A at the end, so we've got about 15 minutes. So I am hoping you are going to pepper me with questions, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Maybe some of you will turn your videos on.
I love the comment you made about the middle of the screen on that last screen there. Keep reminding this is something that this is based on the feedback that you've been given and that you've given us, so that it keeps bringing it back. So why are we going through change? Because a lot of people don't love change, and this is why. This is that you know the general consensus was this is going to be better.
Right.
Kind of helps smooth out those bumps on the road of change.
And Peter, I'll tell you that by communicating that over and over and over like a broken record, which we did, it actually allowed our customers to be more gracious with us. So as we were rolling it out and we were telling them, listen, we're experimenting with different things. Everything we do is meant to give you better service. When we said that, when we messed something up, they were like, no, it's cool. We'll figure it out because we know that what you're doing is intended to help us. So it gained us a lot of graciousness with the people that we were working with as well.
So there wasn't quite the same pressure to, you have to be successful on day one. It's okay, we're trying, there's intentionality and just repeating that again and again.
Yep.
Yeah. So what questions, what feedback, anyone want to contribute and participate? This is your chance.
This is Katerina Henrique. Can you hear me?
Hi, Katerina. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm in a totally different time zone with some positive cases at home. So I will not put now the video if that's okay. Yeah, but I'm actually really pleased that you opened this forum, let's say, for different kind of people. I'm not, as you, I don't know if you remember or not, but I'm not into HR, so I'm very on the technical department, and I had a very good experience working with you, and I wish that the companies that I've been working with, they follow actually the concept that I learned from you and I have as a role model. And I would like to understand, because you have now your company, on how you could contribute for, or how can I help you and the company that I work to get this in mind, this new way of having the HR.
Mm-hmm. Well,
working so close with the customers, and yeah.
Yes. Katerina, I'm always happy to speak to HR teams, and a big part of my business is also HR team development. So the presentation that we just used, I've used it many times as a keynote, as kind of inspiration for HR teams to think differently. You know, not to say that everybody has to follow the same exact process, but at least as an inspiration to take concepts like, okay, our employees are our customers, and what can we do to provide better service for them? So I'm always happy to reach out to HR teams and help them. One other thing that I would mention to you is I have also found that this same concept and the process works in other enabling functions. So I've seen finance teams, for example, use the same process, because whenever you're an enabling function, you're in the same situation where your customers are inside of your business. And so I've seen this kind of expanded. I am very fortunate that I had an opportunity to present this one time to Frances Frei early on in the process. And I've stayed in touch with her since then. And she does still tell me to this day that I'm the only person that she knows who has applied the concepts of the book to internal functions in a business, versus mostly companies use this for their external customers. But she's very supportive and loves the process too. Hi, Kristen.
Hi.
Hi, Jessica.
Can I just say hi now? Just for a little.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but thanks a lot, Erika. It's and I do recognize that we actually do that within our areas of work, that we are actually we are very worried with our stakeholders, with our customers, and with our suppliers. But sometimes it's also important to understand how the people interact, and if they are happy, to create the motivation and the engagement of each person, right? So that's why at least the time that I work and I experience you acting, I just fell in love, I have to admit, and I just and it could be inspired from this book. I don't know if you had it already in you, but that's something that I have as a role model, and I wish that all the companies would be doing like that, because we feel that, okay, HR cares about what we do, and they are backing us in case we need some support. So
Yeah. You know, I get really worried too when teams talk about HR transformation. And when they say HR transformation, they're talking all about systems and tools. And quite honestly, I also get very worried when teams, HR teams, I think I'm going to say something a little bit bold here. I think HR teams sometimes try to push too much HR work back on the managers. So they'll say, we have this great HR system now. Now the manager can do this and the manager can do that. I had a client once that actually said, we want our HR team out of the business of getting involved in individual employee issues. And that broke my heart. Because let me tell you, the administrative work that the HR team does, that can be done by a system. That could be outsourced. The one-on-one personal connection can never be outsourced and should never be replaced. And if you take that away from an HR team, why do you even have an HR team? I think the biggest, most important thing that an HR team can do is connect with people and coach people and care for them.
definitely. Yes, definitely. Yes. Yeah, I think I'll try to just to contact you separately, just to understand how I could also link you somehow to our company, and because at least I didn't see it mentioned on the companies, and I think we could all have great benefits out of that.
Thank you, Katerina.
So,
I put my contact information in the chat, so I put my email in there as well as my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, great.
We'll send a follow-up email as well so that everyone will have it in their inbox.
That's very nice.
So I was just going to chime in quick and say hello, but also I lived through this transformation personally on the HR team with Erika. And now I work at a much smaller company where I'm an HR director and I have a team of 2 people working under me, but we have taken the same principles and applied them at a small company. So really this works at both a small company and a large company, where, this allows me to be more strategic and literally say to my employees, I don't want to know how all this works. I want to be bad at this. I'm okay being bad at this because you're really good at it. And so, whether you have an HR team of 200 or 5, there's no reason that you can't apply the same principles.
Kristen, thank you for adding that, because I think that's sometimes a question that people have. They'll say to me, our HR team isn't big enough to do this. But I love your experience in that you have, even with 3 people, you've been able to segment and focus on, doing different services instead of focusing on different client groups, which is what teams usually do.
Right, absolutely. And it doesn't mean that we don't have the skill set to do everything, at a mediocre level or even a better level, but it allows us to focus our time because we are super lean. And, I need to be more the partner to my managers and my leaders and driving, the strategic direction of the company. And I need to have my team members focusing more on, compliance and benefits and employee experience. And so, by compartmentalizing our focus, it does allow us to do more.
Yeah, that makes me happy. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Erika. Can I share?
Yes.
So I also, with Kristen and Erika, lived through this transformation, and it was great the first time around. Since that time, I've had the opportunity to operationalize it myself in other locations, and it still today works out really well if you decide what you're going to be good at, what you're going to be bad at, what is systematized, what is outsourcing, but really that employee client touch with HR comes to be the most important thing. And I just want to say that I'm working with a client right now, and they took the ideas, the concepts on this, they went too far with it and digitized everything, really took the HR manager out of the touch with the hiring manager. 2 things happened. The hiring managers come back and they say, I have no connection with my HR team. They also don't feel supported. We've lost credibility between the hiring manager and the HR manager who's client facing or supposed to be client facing, and then the client facing lost credibility with the tech side because it just wasn't flowing well.
Yeah.
On top of that, they didn't do a great job of communicating that there was a culture change. And so there's a lot of, why am I doing the HR manager's job? So we're trying to unwind that now and get those people who are client facing back in front of those hiring managers and employees, and trying to fix the tech so it doesn't overwhelm and create all sorts of mess. So I can tell you that, you know, with great intentions, it was taken too far, but there is a real sweet spot that Erika described very well that I just like to caution and add, and I think it's an important point.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jessica, they got the right person helping them to fix it.
Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate Erika for the presentation and everyone's contributions here at the end. We appreciate that you all joined us. We will continue hosting these roundtable sessions, as well as some other live events that we'll be hosting starting next month. So look forward to that, to participating. And yeah, thank you again. You all have a wonderful end of the week here, and enjoy the spring weather.
Thank you for hosting,
Thanks a
Peter.
lot.
It was great to see you, Katerina and Tina.
Yes, same.
Jessica. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.